Well, in today's video, we're going to paint a waterfall. Not just any waterfall, it's a really cool one. And what does a waterfall have in common with a string of pearls? Well, we're going to find out. No, I actually don't think you'd look good with pearl earrings. I'm trying to figure out what you'd look like with ears. You know, it's been forever since I've done a waterfall on this channel. I think I've only done one other one, and it was a small little kind of a thumbnail. Here's the reference I'll be using. And I took this, oh man, almost 8 years ago, 9 years ago. This is what I'll use. It's a 7x10, 140-pound arch block. Got it taped off and ready to go. Put it on my little pucks there. I want nearly flat or nearly flat for the wet on wet, pre-wet. And I'm just going to pre-wet everything. But I want to add a little color, so it'll be pre-wetting the paper with color. It's just a combination of some yellow ochre, some dragon's blood. I'm using my 6-color set for my Mary Blue. A little bit of Hooker's green, just faint color right now. Main point here is just to get my paper good and wet. I love rocks. I love painting rocks, and this is just a whole big cascade of these incredible rocks. While this is my main reference, I'm not going by it totally. I'm also including additional reference. I like the darker part of these rocks. The other one had too many highlights on the rocks. So I'm mainly interested in characteristics. And that's what I suggest when you do these things, especially something like rocks or trees or clouds, is study characteristics. I mean, sure, if you have something you want to copy exactly from a photo, that's good practice, I guess. But it's also very important that you look at them. You look at these rocks, for instance, you say, what is the characteristic of each of these rocks? Where are the shadows? What are the shapes they're making? What are the shadow shapes, the highlight shapes? In this case, there's a lot of dark crevices. And as they undercut back into the bank, the shadows get a little darker. So all great observations to make. And I spent some time on these rocks. Actually, the water and the waterfall part of it was the easy part. That was quick. But I wanted to design these rocks, the shapes of the rocks, the shadows, highlights, etc., to a very pleasing state. And so I spent some time there. What I'm working on up there in the corner is the foliage. And that just involves some negative painting. And I'll come back over that with gouache. I will be adding some gouache to this. But now I'm just adding detailed crevices, deepening some of the deepest parts of the shadows in those crevices, and just generally getting that whole cascade of rocks the way I like it. It was a fun process. A big challenge, too, in values. Rocks are always a big challenge in values. Here I'm working on that foliage again, just doing some negative painting around them to kind of get it defined, get the edges defined, break up those edges, get the gist of a bush up there. Now, the highlight part of the top of the rocks, I wanted to take those values down again. The initial reference that I was using, I thought, again, those highlights were just a little bit blown out, and I liked the darker ones. I liked the pictures I had where the rocks were darker, had some moss on them. So I'm just going around, and I am isolating some of the very brightest highlights. And I'm just doing that by surrounding, those highlight values with darker values. A little bit of green we're adding, get the mossy feel. And a lot of the water is going to come down to the center and just off to the left of center. So just really a very fun, satisfying process. And when I'm going back into these shadows, I'm really thinking a lot about the design of the shapes. Once I've got them looking like rocks, then I want to make those shapes kind of lead your eye around, kind of move and point in more interesting directions. So you'll see me combining some shadow shapes, see me darkening some, and having layers kind of merge in corners and edges until I have a design that I feel, kind of pulls you through and flows really well. Helps your eye flow. That's what I'm doing here. Kind of hard to describe what I'm doing or looking for. It's just, do I like it? Do I need to combine these shapes? Do I need to combine those shapes? What do I need to do? When it starts looking back at me as though it were a rock waterfall area, then I'm happy. Can't always describe what's right. Just have to do a lot of observation. And then a lot of, deciding what you like. Now we're going to get into the gouache. I put a little bit of fresh white. I have white in the pans. This is all Daniel Smith gouache. I'll link to it below. But I put out some fresh white out on the palette, aside from the pans that already were filled. Those were dried. I just wanted to be able to get to maximum opacity of the white quick. And for the bush and some of the foliage that I'll be painting, I wanted to mix up a brighter green. And we're just going to finesse those edges and add some more convincing bush detail. Gouache paints just fine with watercolor. You don't have to paint one or the other. In fact, I like gouache for the lighter colors and the highlights, and I prefer watercolor for the darks and the shadows. It's not an approach you always hear, but it's one that works. Here I'm just using watercolor again to shadow and add some negative, darker values under the gouache. Now I'm going back with lighter gouache and making some highlights. So the two are a match made in heaven. Now we're getting to the water. And this kind of a waterfall, these kind of waterfall trickles, if you will, are some of the easiest to paint. But you want to make sure you're looking like you're flowing logically over the rocks. Now, you want to think string of pearls. That's kind of what these little streams look like. It's a stream of pearls, or a string of pearls, or almost like a icicle. Very easy to kind of visualize and draw. I started out doing this with gouache, and that's fine. All the water trickles and waterfall can be put in with white gouache. I decided though that I wanted to switch to a gel pen. Now they both have their advantages. This is what I was using, a Jelly Roll by Sakura. I'm using the Bold, which is the 10. And because so much of this was linear, or kind of like lines, little dotted lines, this just seemed like an obvious choice to me, and it did make it a lot easier. Now the Jelly Roll white gel pens are acrylic, so they dry permanent. This is not something you can loosen up, smear, or blend in any way. I didn't think that'd particularly be a problem given how much these look like lines. And you can go back, and I will go back and touch it up with gouache. But it just made it a very easy task to draw in these little trickles. Very good opacity with the Jelly Roll. It was just neat, to see this little waterfall come to life. And it was very easy. But again, pay attention to how water flows over the rocks, where it pools in flat areas. And use some kind of interesting design and balance where you add your trickles. Don't make them evenly spaced, because that's the first way to make it look unnatural. Make them randomly spaced. Give yourself some wide spacing, some narrow spacing, some thicker strings or trickles, some thinner. Just make it look natural, basically. I simplified this. It kind of made it a little less water than any of the reference. So that's okay. It to me needed to be that way. Now what I'm doing here is touching up. I'm adding streaks, which you can't really do very well with the gel pen. I'm softening, adding softer areas. I'm blending. You can take, if you want to meld some of the strings of water, trickles of water together. I'm painting in, little splashes and glints along the rock. And I just felt like the gouache was better for that. And we're done. And I'm very happy with that. It was a very fun painting. One of the things you can do, which I didn't show, is also take some dark watercolor and glaze over. If you think some of the lines of trickle water is too stark, you can glaze over it with a darker color. Subdue it a bit. Thanks, everyone. So glad you're watching today. Thank you so much, patrons. This channel is supported by patrons. Hope you'll consider becoming a patron. There's extra content over there, and it keeps this channel going. We'll see everybody in the next video. Bye-bye.